And thank you all so much for joining us for, as Millie said, the fifth and final day of DAM Industry Week. You know, it's really a pleasure to see so many people who self-identify as DAM practitioners come together in one place. But today in particular, people who identify as DAM practitioners in the healthcare space. And I know I speak for a lot of people here when I say we should have been appreciative of the healthcare space for our whole lives, certainly. But I think over the last year and a half, I think we've all had a little bit of an elevated appreciation for the healthcare space. So for all of you who are joining us today, I thank you on behalf of all of humanity. I don't know if I'm qualified for that, but thank you for all of your hard work during this very challenging time. I do hope that some of you got the chance to attend some of the other sessions throughout this week in some of the other industry days, because while we're going to hear from some really fantastic healthcare specific speakers over the course of the day today, there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from the other industries as well. You know, after all, you know, we all know that healthcare makes things a little bit more challenging. If you work in this space, as I know many of you do, you know, you have your own unique set of challenges that get thrown at you on a day-to-day basis. But at the end of the day, we're talking about digital asset management, and digital asset management is digital asset management is digital asset management. We're managing assets through a life cycle. So, so at its core, there are some commonalities. So I think it's important not to lose sight of those commonalities, but also really pay some specific attention today to some of those unique things that come into play as well. So I thought I'd start today by introducing a concept that we've been looking at quite a bit at Real Story Group when we're advising our clients as to how they should be thinking about digital asset management. And I think for anyone attending a conference like this, it sometimes could be even intimidating to hear some great case studies from these, you know, some of the world's leading organizations in the pharma space, in the direct care provider space. You know, it's easier to think, oh my goodness, we're so far behind, you know, we got such a mountain to climb here. But you know, if there's one thing I want you to all take away from this, we're all on our own damn journey. We're all at a different phase of this damn journey, and some of us have taken multiple attempts to get to the phase we're at today, but that's okay, and it's okay to be at phase 1 or 2 or 3 or even something beyond that. But no one's got this figured out completely. You know, that I can assure you. And at Real Story Group, this is our 20th year of being in business, and we've had the pleasure of working with, I think by last count, a little over 4,000 different companies across 60 different countries in every single industry. And I can tell you, no one's figured this out yet. I haven't seen one organization that's at the end of their journey. Everyone is progressing through this. So I thought I'd introduce this bit of a framework for you to all kind of get on the same page and think about where you are on your damn journey. And you know, in our research, we found that, you know, many buyers tend to self-identify with one of these phases. It helps them pick the right vendor because certain vendors are aligned to satisfying the needs of each of these phases. And it also helps the organizations put together their future roadmaps because they can see where they are today and where they might want to get to in the future. And so with that said, I just wanted to introduce a couple different phases. So DAM 1.0, as we like to call it, is DAM as really what I'd like to say is a standalone library. You know, so for many of you who are in a DAM 1.0 world, DAM is that place that you put your assets, right? It's that single repository for managing images, video, audio throughout a life cycle, right? Pretty basic. And for many of you, this is the first step in that journey. Maybe even prior to this, you were managing your digital assets in a series of shared network drives or file shares or cloud sharing platforms, or, you know, but really it was all, you probably had assets, you know, living across the organization in a multitude of places, right? So those who get to DAM 1.0, you're finally starting to have that single repository of where your assets live. Now, as many of you know, getting to DAM 1.0 is a challenge in and of itself. So I don't mean to, I don't want to oversimplify just what it takes to get to DAM 1.0. That's an accomplishment there. But Where DAM 1.0 kind of falls short is when you do create a standalone library, in most cases, that standalone DAM is disconnected from the rest of your technology. So what you've in effect actually done is just created another silo in your organization. It's another place to go to put assets and another place to go to retrieve assets, which for some of you, that might be okay. And that might be your final destination, and that's okay. But for others of you, this is a stepping stone for on which you want to build on. So that brings us to 2.0, and this is where we see a lot of our clients really thinking about DAM over the last 5 years or so in particular, and that's what I sometimes call DAM as a MarTech service. Now, I know not all of you are in MarTech or think about your assets as a MarTech service just yet, but many of you are thinking about your assets as building blocks to creating experiences, whether those experiences happen in a marketing world or in a physical world or in some other digital experience world. We are all creating assets so that someone can then take those assets and build them into unique experiences and hopefully consistent experiences across the board. So many organizations start to think about this, and particularly, how does my digital asset management system interact with the other systems that I use to create experiences? So maybe it's my web content management system. Maybe it's my marketing automation system, my email system, my social publishing tools, my mobile application tools. Maybe it's the billboard system in my hospital or in my offices or on a highway as I drive along the street. Maybe it's a billboard there. It doesn't matter what the end state is, but the point here is that there is integration between your single source of asset truth to a bunch of engagement systems of engagement where you create experiences, and then ultimately where the rubber hits the road as those experiences meet the people that you're trying to target, right? So that's really the difference there. Your DAM is now connected. Now, I just talked about a lot of downstream connectivity, but there's also upstream connectivity too, right? This is where you start to think about what happened before that asset was deemed final and made it into the DAM. What about all those creative aspects and workflows and approvals and versions that happen over and over again? All that needs to be connected too. So when we talk about DAM as a MarTech service in the 2.0 world, we're talking about what happens upstream into the DAM and then downstream out to my multitude of channels. Now, one of the limits of the DAM 2.0 world in general cases is that this is a one-way flow of information, right? The DAM is coming from your creators into your DAM and out to the systems of engagement, out to the world. And that's again, for many of you, that might be your final destination as well. But that for others, that's just a starting point, because many others of you are starting to think about what's next. What should I really be thinking about in a DAM 3.0 world? And a lot of people call this different things, a lot of different labels that have been put on this over the years. We at Real Story Group have been talking about it in the context of a omni-channel content platform. So you notice I got a little bit outside of MarTech, outside of even the DAM terminology, if you will, because when we see our clients start to think about a 3.0 world, we start to see them expanding their definition about what they should be managing in a single platform. So certainly the things that you think about when it comes to DAM, like your images and video and audio files, but then people start to think about managing narrative content and even data in some cases as first-class objects right alongside of those digital objects or traditional digital assets. And what you end up here with is this notion of managing different media types alongside of each other, but with the intention of giving your experience creators consistent building blocks, whether they're assets, data, text, in order to create experiences at every single channel that someone might interact with your content. So we talk about experiences maybe in 2.0, we're thinking more marketing oriented. In an omni-channel world, we're thinking about all the experiential touch points that we know today, and even those that we don't know that might come down the pike in the future, right? Where we need, this is many of our clients who are thinking about the DAM 3.0 are really planning for an unknown future. And that's a powerful thing. And so in order to do that, you need to have to structure your assets in systems that can handle some real complicated models, so that you're managing components at a pretty granular state, so that you're able to reuse these assets in real meaningful ways. And then maybe the biggest real game changer here, as I think about a 3.0 world, is we're no longer thinking in a one-way flow of information. We need to start thinking about a two-way flow of information. And maybe the easiest way to think about that is we're all measuring analytics and measuring how people are interacting with our experiences that we create in different ways and different channels. But what if we could start to flow some of that data back to the asset, back to that omni-channel content storage place, where I can then use that data to inform future decisions? So that if I'm a designer trying to create an optimal web application experience, I can say, the last time we did this for this region of the country, targeting this group of people, this asset was more successful than this one. So I recommend you do something in that vein, right? And that's an overly simplistic type thing, but this round tripping of data back to the asset repository should inform future decisions and make us smarter as experience creators. And then to take that one step further and thinking about maybe a 3.2 world, 3.5 world, 4.0 world, I think when we think about applying these lessons that we're learning in DAM 3.0 to at scale and to some of the biggest companies and organizations and healthcare providers in the world, what if we can start automating some of these decisions? Some of you have so many assets to try to manage. What if we could say, based on the data that we're seeing and based on people's behavior out in the world, what if we could start to bubble up certain assets to our content creators and say, hey, these are really performing. Maybe you should use these or something like these more often. That's really powerful, right? And start to just help inform some decisions. And I can tell you, if you're not thinking about this yet, I promise you, your peers are, because this is probably the most common conversation I have on a day-to-day basis with our clients. There's organizations in every industry, but very much in healthcare too, who are all moving in this direction. So I think it's important to start to think about this as you think about your own roadmaps. So with that said, I wanted to just call your attention again to the agenda for today, because we have an awesome group of attendees, or presenters, I should say, in addition to our awesome group of attendees. We have representatives from the pharma space. We have Abbott and J&J and Novartis and Edwards and Sartorius. And then on the direct care providers, we have, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and Boston Medical Center, and of course, our keynote speaker here this morning from the Mayo Clinic. And I've had the privilege of working with a bunch of our speakers across the profile today, and I can tell you, you're in for a treat. And so, without further ado, I wanted to now introduce you all to Stephen Sponsel from the Mayo Clinic, who's going to take us through where the Mayo is on their journey. And Stephen, I'll now turn it over to you and welcome you to the conversation, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jared. It's great to be here, and I kind of wish we could take your 3 phases slide and just run it underneath mine, because we'll talk about Mayo's experience in that journey. So if you bear with me a minute, I'll get my slides up. And can you tell me if you're seeing the
yes,
the presentation? Okay,
yes.
Well, again, my name is Steve Sponsel. I'm one of the directors in our Media Support Services division, and I've been with Mayo Clinic for over 30 years. I've worked on all types of media in my time here, and I've also been deeply involved in managing documents and images in the medical record. It's really fun to be presenting here, since my team and I have gotten so much out of previous presentations and networking with many of you. We've learned a lot about what to do and what not to do with DAM implementations. And the story I'm going to share is kind of a classic example of needing to pick yourself up and dust yourself off after a less than stellar early generation experience. And really have you really have to apply some painful lessons to the next generation. And Jared, I think looking at your progression, Mayo's been on the 1.0 path for a long time, and I'll get into that a little bit. But our biggest problem that we're going to talk about here is we aimed and had really good early success with DAM 2.0, and it just kind of fell apart. And now we're being challenged by the organization to leapfrog to DAM 3.0. So I hope, Jared, this talk fits nicely into the framework you're talking about. A little bit about me. I fell into the healthcare industry by accident as a young graphic designer covering for a maternity leave. And I only really recognized that I was a lifer here when the baby whose leave I was covering for came back to work in our division as a summer student photographer 18 years later. There's a little humbling moment there. I was originally planning on working in the advertising and marketing field coming right out of school. But I've ended up staying at Mayo Clinic because of the many opportunities to contribute media skills to an organization that really lives up to its core mission of the needs of the patient come first. So, I've never really had a time of midlife crisis where I've had to ask myself if I'm doing something of value. And I really hope many of you in the healthcare field feel the same way. In my role as a manager in our division, I've had the opportunity to serve in several interesting migrations from analog to digital, first in printing, then photography, and most recently patient TV services. And I was tapped to rethink our DAM approach a couple of years ago to respond to a new digital strategy at Mayo. I've had the pleasure of building an awesome new team to respond to the digital strategy challenges. And I truly haven't had this much fun working on a project in years. And it's largely because everybody on the team shares a passion and dedication to Mayo and to doing this project right. We also have a great new platform and a couple of very effective implementation partners that keep us pointed in the right direction. Failed early implementations are a pretty common story in the DAM world. I've certainly heard a lot of first generation failure stories from other Henry Stewart attendees, and Mayo absolutely hasn't been immune to that. We've learned a lot from the earlier iterations of our DAM program, and I'd like to share how we've applied what we've learned to our new program. First, a little background about our organization inside of Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic has 70,000 staff supporting an organization that sees millions of patients every year. My division has about 350 people in total, making us a small part, really a tiny part of Mayo Clinic, but a large media operation by anyone's definition. We have a long history in supporting medical media. Medical photography is one of the oldest administrative services at Mayo, dating all the way back to 1907. We also provide media services for marketing, patient communications, Mayo School of Medicine, and a variety of internal communications. On the right side, you see we've organized our division into 4 multidisciplinary programs. The first of these is the meeting experience, which provides services for arranging, producing, streaming, and archiving meetings and large events on our enterprise video conferencing system. Content creation and storytelling provides photography, videography, and production design for external, patient, and employee audiences. Print and electronic publishing provides traditional printing, digital printing, secure document printing and mailing, as well as internet publishing support. Digital media distribution, the new program that I manage, has our DAM repository at its core, and it also includes the web streaming platform, our patient-facing TV and video services, and digital signage as tools to provide our multimedia content to various audiences. Taken together, these programs account for virtually all of Mayo's non-diagnostic multimedia content, and our digital asset management program supports all of them. The picture on the left shows what the storage of physical negatives looked like at Mayo Clinic in 1999. Our first foray into digital asset management, what Jared would call our DAM 1.0, was at about the same time when we were moving from wet lab production on film and paper to digital acquisition and distribution. The initial focus was on archiving our own material, literally moving from filing cabinets full of Vectachrome slides and black and white negatives to a digital version of the same. Over time, we scanned about 250,000 images to add into the DAM. We took on a house-wide effort to create and maintain employee ID portraits, which now account for about 400,000 of our assets, and continued to add new assets to our collections, totaling about 1.4 million images by the start of the migration to today's new platform. Our original efforts were initially well-resourced with a good team and good first and second generation DAM platforms. As I said earlier, we really were aiming at this DAM 2.0, almost exactly the way Jared explained it. So we had our eye on this larger concept of content management, where DAM would be a component of that whole, what we're calling internally our content ecosystem. Unfortunately, the organization really didn't understand the potential for content management and digital asset management at the time. And without a larger shared vision, we were unable to clearly show value, tangible or intangible, beyond our own division. Over time, the internal focus of the program caused us to gradually lose sight of what major stakeholders and customers needed from us. Core responsibilities slowly became part of several employees' duties, several employees across multiple work units, and we didn't have any dedicated resources. As support became decentralized, our processes slowly devolved, and our ability to maintain metadata standards, which are absolutely key to finding relevant images, totally atrophied. And to put a final nail in the program's coffin, the 2008 financial crisis made it difficult to justify staffing for a departmental program that didn't have any obvious institutional value, or to justify capital purchases to make it better and more efficient. The program really began to be seen as a cost burden rather than a benefit. And our division at the leadership level, myself included, started evaluating whether this was going to be a viable program, viable continuing service, or if it'd be better handled somewhere else by somebody else. So what changed? A lot changed, and it has everything to do with why we feel we're successful today. The most fundamental change that set us up for success was the organization's dawning realization that content management paired with DAM really was valuable. The earliest changes were driven by understanding the importance of providing consistent and accurate content to patients as we created more and more new ways to communicate digitally with our patients and other external audiences. Ultimately, this explosion in digital media that includes several intranet sites, our patient portal, mobile applications, and YouTube channels, and multiple YouTube channels, drove the organization to create an explicit digital strategy. Happily for us, strong DAM capabilities were called out as a dependency for this emerging digital strategy, which really recognizes that any current platforms need to be powered by compelling imagery and compelling video. We were able to coordinate our project with this much larger mega project for digital strategy. Using that base of support, our team focused on building a governance model tied to that digital strategy that could ensure we didn't fall into the limited departmental system trap again. And again, going back to Jared's model, I mean, we just did not want to put ourselves in the position of backsliding from a 2 or a 3 all the way back to a 1. That was a painful experience we don't want to do again. So we also teamed with others in the content environment to create a shared metadata model for all content relative to the digital strategy and to Mayo Clinic's larger objectives. So I'll talk a little bit more about each of those in the next few slides. We took at least 3 runs at a replacement to our current 2.0 kind of sort of 1.0 platform over the last decade, building a strong list of stakeholders and their requirements along the way. We were able to build on what we've learned in these false starts and put a much larger effort into engaging with a broad group of stakeholders this time out. From a distance, anyone would look at our program and think the stars simply aligned with this new project. In reality, we worked extensively with several major groups in the organization who were really struggling to efficiently create content for external distribution and for our school's curricula and for other internal purposes. Website managers, book publishers, and app creators were all suffering from an inability to quickly find existing multimedia content. As a result, we were well prepared when the digital strategy was being developed and projects were being created. Stakeholder engagements provided the use cases that demonstrated value beyond our digital filing cabinet. These stakeholders recognize the need to tie the use of images and video to actual patient appointments and other patient contacts. The explosion in the use of video is a primary example of the need to know what's available, what's relevant to each patient, and managing the process consistently from concept through production and distribution. In the absence of an enterprise approach, a half a dozen processes and platforms had grown up organically, causing internal confusion, patient confusion, and a host of inefficiencies. One simple example of this problem was the discovery that patients were being asked to prepare for procedures differently, depending on which medium was being used to communicate with them. For instance, we had radiology procedures where the prep instructions, if you followed your printed and mailed appointment packet, were different than if you went on a patient portal and got your prep instructions from the portal. We had multiple cases where patients came in prepped incorrectly and had to be sent home at great cost to them and great cost to us. We also invested an appreciable amount of time in detailing core business needs and the technical capabilities required to meet them as the foundation of what eventually became our DAM strategic business plan. Part of that plan is to integrate our DAM with the larger content ecosystem that continues to grow in parallel with our program. This ecosystem also contains headless content management, federated search, digital experience, and a variety of other functions. The core value we can now point to is getting the right information to patients and potential patients at the right time through the right tools to support high quality healthcare and to help drive appointments up. Excuse me. We spent a lot of time identifying potential partners to help us define and build a governance model that can guide our program and ensure that we stay in sync with our partners in the broader content ecosystem. You'll see on this slide that we're saying MAM, so we're saying Media Asset Management. And what I'm focusing mostly on today is our current DAM replacement, but our future program will incorporate full video workflow integration, B-roll management, and integration with our video streaming engine. We're launching this phase of our project right now, but we intentionally focused on a clean DAM migration from the old platform to the new over the last 12 to 18 months. At the base of our governance model is the operational team, the program team that provides day-to-day services to our customers. The team's goals are to provide operations excellence and to continuously improve our services. The middle layer is our advisory group, comprising a variety of stakeholders, including practice, brand and marketing, education, IT, development, and our executive office. This advisory group helps us identify emerging needs and to set priorities on our roadmap. It also helps identify any areas of potential conflict or issues that need strategic direction, so those can be escalated to the next level. The top of our governance pyramid is a content strategy group that's closely tied to the group responsible for defining and delivering on Mayo's digital strategy. As the orange arrows indicate on the left, excuse me, we look to the top of this pyramid to define strategic directions and desired outcomes that need to drive our program operations and development. The return arrow at the right side shows how the model gives us a way to keep top-level leadership aware of developments and to resolve problems or conflicts. Our major stakeholders want to be able to access all known information related to a concept, whether that information is contained in images from us, narrative content from the content management system, a clinical process from the knowledge management system, or part of any other library in the organization. We all understand there needs to be a shared metadata model across all of these repositories for the whole ecosystem to be successful. The first focus of our program was to develop a team with, at its core, a DAM librarian who would help build out the required metadata structure in collaboration with others in the organization. She and her group are actively engaged in Mayo's ontology and metadata groups. Our team also took the lead in developing the multimedia content policies that are part of the larger content ecosystem policy library. These policies, which were developed by a highly collaborative multidisciplinary group, clearly define the new DAM platform as the single source of truth for all of Mayo's non-diagnostic images. These policies also provide direction for translation of media materials, managing the currency of assets, and defining criteria for creating new collections within the DAM. Where are we now? It's fun to be giving this talk on the last day of April, since this is the go live month for the new platform that we spent the last several years working on. We've established the formal metadata policy and implemented it in the new library. We're continuing to build out our operational team, which now includes the librarian supervisor, a media asset librarian, 2 catalogers, and a couple of business analysts embedded in the program. We've also just started to form an additional new team that will work with clinical video as a separate set of collections. We've engaged with an awesome implementation partner to develop user training materials and are providing training to key users right now. We'll continue to clean up and improve the old metadata we've migrated from the old system for the foreseeable future. The team has also developed a clear roadmap for future program development. We found it very helpful on our roadmap to tease apart a swim lane for early discovery and feature definition, a different lane for building, and a third lane for implementation. This way we can keep the right people, the right resources focused on moving the program forward efficiently without getting in each other's way. Our roadmap is a living document with the activities and projects moving around the roadmap quite frequently based on changing priorities and resource availability. I'm just going to show a quick screenshot of our new home page. So this is what it looks like now. We've visually highlighted the categories that most customers need and made pathways to finding assets as easy as possible. We've also approached the design in a way that's easy to update with new images over time. The screenshot also shows our primary public collections, including on the left, brand approved images for general use for our entire audience of 70,000 customers who are very often looking for images to illustrate what, in our case, and I think most of the healthcare arena is the same, the concepts you're trying to illustrate from a brand perspective are conceptual and kind of obtuse. So having a library that helps people find, say, an image that portrays compassion is a real win for all of us in the organization. We also have a huge collection of medical illustrations and animations. We have a lot of call for pictures of buildings, campuses, and physical environments. We have a gigantic editorial photography library, a lot of historical photos, group photos. I mentioned the ID portraits earlier, so there's a huge collection for ID portraits, and our video collection. There's some small links along the bottom here that identify private collections that are available to specific users and departments, and these links only display to users that have access to them. What are we up to in the future? I've hinted at the notion of a development team and an operations team as separate entities in earlier slides. We're putting a lot of effort into defining team structure to provide solid day-to-day services to our customers while keeping enough of our team focused on next year's model to keep moving the program forward. Some of the features we're working on now include the implementation of APIs to automate image acquisition and retrieval, and to create integrations with other components of the content ecosystem, like the content management system. So that's the lead of what Jared was talking about, at least in our case, for the DAM 3.0, highly integrated, bidirectional. We're also managing work in progress for video production, including the ability for our editors to work remotely with low-res proxy files when they can't be on campus. That's a feature that we sure wish we would have had a year ago when we sent all of our video editors home to work from home. We're supporting personalized content delivery, particularly for patient communications, like condition-specific patient education materials. We're developing consistent and efficient processes to support publication of multimedia content on our internal site, internet sites, our patient portal and mobile apps, YouTube, and our inpatient television services. Finally, the evaluation and implementation of artificial intelligence to help with translation of content, particularly our video content, enrichment of metadata for each visual asset, and facial recognition across all of our collections using our portrait library as the definitive source. To reiterate the key success factors, I gotta say we're just delighted with our project progress so far, and the whole team's excited about all the developments to come. While there are many factors that have contributed to our success, we've learned from our previous experience, our backslide from DAM 2.0 to 1.0, that we just couldn't have gotten any of this off the ground without investing heavily in stakeholder relationships, identifying value tied to organizational goals rather than our own departmental needs, and strong strategic leadership through the governance model. Thanks for your time. I'm happy to take any questions from the audience at this point, and I will stop screen sharing.
Awesome,
Jared.
Thank you so.
You're back.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was really good insight into your DAM journey, and I think everyone can appreciate the fact that that journey that I mentioned, it isn't always linear, right? Sometimes you have to start and stop. And
I wanted to put it exactly those ways. I mean, it had some bumps and some backsliding there, but we're where we need to be.
But you're not alone. We were joking earlier too. You were saying how this is, you're really your second big effort at DAM before you really got underway. But I was telling you, some of the clients that we see are on their third, fourth, fifth, sixth attempt at really getting started. So don't feel bad there. All right. So we actually have a bunch of questions that came in during your talk, and folks, if you have more, just feel free to add it to the Q&A portion here. We're going to try to get through as many as we can in the next under 10 minutes now, but I did want to also mention that you're going to be sticking around and participating in the networking lounge immediately following the session too. So for anyone whose question we did not answer, or anyone else who wants to talk with Stephen one-on-one or in a small group, feel free to jump into that networking lounge as well. All right, Stephen. So first question was around, I thought it was kind of funny, someone asked, what was the first indicator for you that you needed a new DAM, that you needed to start to do something different? Was there was there a light bulb moment there?
Actually, well, I don't know if there's any one moment. I mean, our program really seriously devolved to being, we were a totally reactive service. So basically everybody hated it. and to put a Mayo spin on it, what was really horrible about that, from where I sit, having being a long-term employee, we named our system Maud. That we named it after, and Maud Mellish was our original medical librarian, kind of one of the key partners to building our medical record, and we thought it was just a brilliant idea to name our program in homage to her, and then we just killed the name. So it was just universally not liked.
Sometimes it's really obvious you need to do something different. So that's good. Just one quick note, we've gotten a lot of questions that are related to individual vendors and people asking about which vendors are better suited for different phases. And I'll just say, I spend my whole life looking at the vendor landscape, and we're not going to do that here on this call today, but if anyone wants to email me, go to Real Story Group and find my contact. I'll be happy to talk about that till I'm blue in the face. But we're not going to get into individual vendors today, but we're going to keep it focused on more of the broader things here. And so the next question, was something, it was a follow-up to something you brought up, Stephen, around getting buy-in for this new DAM, right? Mm-hmm. And this is another thing that you and I were talking about earlier, where sometimes it's tough to convince people that a new digital asset management system is going to provide, strict ROI return. It's just going to be like, oh, we'll just do this and we'll start saving all sorts of money. Sometimes you need to make a case in some different ways, and some of them aren't always pleasant, right? And so the question from one of our audience members was, ultimately, what was the key factors to getting buy-in? What ultimately convinced the powers that be that, hey, we need to do this?
So I would say on your ROI issue, what is tough, especially in the healthcare organization, the cost structure is so enormous that the kind of work we're doing just doesn't register. I mean, if radiology has a problem, if surgery has a problem, that gets addressed. Trying to cost justify a dam on the internal needs, it's really easy for our leadership way up the food chain to say, just hire more photographers. What's your problem? So that was really difficult. So what really made the difference here is again, for us for the organization to recognize that we were not creating the right kind of materials to engage patients and potential patients. And most critically, we were sending the wrong stuff to patients. It either wasn't current, it wasn't coordinated. It's way upstream from the dam. Actually, it's many authors working on different types of content without understanding that, oh, those three pieces are going to end up in front of the patient on the same day, and they don't agree. So when the practice recognized that is the turning point for recognizing, yeah, we need to go to DAM 3.0, and it needs to be tightly integrated with a okay, I'm trying to remember the omni-channel. I mean, the omni-channel is a huge part of our new digital strategy, and just recognizing every one of those channels needs to be consistent and on message.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, you're so right. So there's another question around someone trying to get a sense of the size and scale of the effort that you undertook here in terms of, how many assets, do you have a number of how many assets you migrated into the new system, and just to give people a sense of?
Yeah, I'll look at it two ways. From our perspective, we pushed about 2 million assets, and that's growing, like any of these dam systems, they grow really fast once you're going. So that number's increased substantially since we started this project. But to put a little bit of humility around that, our clinical imaging and digital imaging archive that we kind of run parallel to has 8 billion images in it. So we do have to maintain some sense of being humble.
Absolutely. And then, I think one of the things that's unique to the healthcare, no matter what area of healthcare you're in, your content, your assets themselves then are challenging, right? You have very specific naming structures and taxonomies that need to be put in place to describe, even just to describe what an asset is, right? And
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of industry standard type nomenclature out there, but then you have your own Mayo specific nomenclature, and then you have other maybe a patient-centric way of describing things. So there's a lot of different languages and taxonomies and metadata that needs to be considered here. So I know you talked about prioritizing the hiring of a librarian and putting a governance team in place, all really important things that I know everyone can relate to. But can you talk about some of the challenges with naming in a minute?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is having allowed ourselves to kind of turn into departmental systems. We have so many images out there that have zero metadata, zero useful metadata. So in the building I work in, if you typed in the name of my building, you get 7,000 undifferentiated images in our old system. So really beefing up as important as the structure of that metadata, making sure each asset is populated with that metadata is crucial. We've had the luxury of we do have others in the content authoring world that are deeply invested in this metadata library. A lot of resources throughout the organization. So that really hasn't been, for my team, it's been more coordinating with that activity, taking advantage of what other brilliant people know, and just making sure we're mirroring that in our system.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, this has been really great. I'm